Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of the Confident CEO podcast. In today's episode, I am delighted to be joined by Drew Dillon, who is the founder and CEO of Burb.co. Burb is a company which is passionate about helping creators to operate their own community, particularly when it comes to online courses and having online services. They provide easy automation and analytics for your community on Circle, Slack, and Discord. But don't worry if you're not using any of these platforms, because what we go over today is not the ins and outs of using different platforms, it's how to create a community for your online audience. In this episode, we are going to be going over strategies for creating a community when you're creating an online course, options for creating a community that isn't based in a Facebook group, why asking your audience what they want can be a key aspect of creating an engaging community, how to avoid analysis paralysis when choosing a platform and plan for your online community, and also getting your online community going when you're just starting out and when no one is engaging. This is a completely information-packed episode, so grab your pens, grab your notebooks, a cup of tea, and get ready to dive in. Hey there, I'm Verity Songon, and this is the Confident CEO podcast, the show that takes you behind the scenes of starting and running your small or not so small business. We will cut through the misinformation and bad advice about starting and running a business and give you actionable tips and advice that you can implement to grow, scale, and achieve your business goals. Let's dive in. Drew, I am so excited for you to be here on the podcast today. We've got some really exciting topics which we are going to be diving into, mainly around the community and membership aspects of building an online course. But what I would love you to do first is introduce yourself to our lovely listeners. Tell us who you are, what it is you do, all that good stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Verity. I'm Drew Dillon. I'm the CEO and founder of Burb. Burb, our mission is to help community-first businesses. And I think when we started out, we've always had that kind of underlying fire, but where we saw so much of community, especially over the past couple of years, was in courses as people were teaching. A lot of the courses that had been evergreen, of course, went to cohort base where people could make more money and, focus on, more of their business. But just this huge, experience this huge operational burden in doing that. Like, how do I put all these pieces together? I know the thing I want to teach, but how do I connect all the dots together? And that's really the kind of birth of Burb.
That's really exciting. And you're right. It's been really interesting watching the online course world change over the last few years, because I think, kind of back in the day, I say back in the day, it wasn't that long ago, but back in the day, we used to kind of create our online courses, we'd shove them online, and that was it. Whereas now people, we all want so much more than, I say, just an online course, in inverted quotes there. But, people want that community. They want that sense of belonging, that connection with people. And that's probably because we went through a pandemic in a couple of years, and some people still go, having isolation periods and what have you. And we all kind of got stuck indoors, and we're now craving that interaction, aren't we? So let's kick off with community. And yeah, let's talk community. How do you think, or what kind of strategies can you give our listeners around creating a community as part of their online course?
Yeah, I think, there's an inherent aspect of learning, which is communal. If you're working towards bettering yourself in some way, chances are the people who are also working on the same thing have similar aspects of what you're trying to do. So as a creator, you could always dial that back to like, okay, why are people coming to my course? What do they want out of my course? And like, what are the things that kind of bring them together? And I think if you can start to figure out like, what are those things, those pieces that are similar about your audience, you can start to figure out, basically what's, what they want to talk about, what they want to be involved in, which is, super empowering if you can actually start to pull that together. And I think there's like the cheesy version of this, which you see a lot of courses do, which is like, have access to, my course, and you'll get access to this private Facebook group. You go to that Facebook group, it's kind of dead. Like that. So I think part of it is also realizing that there's an investment there. You do have to as a community leader, you need to also be a good host. But if you do that well, your community can become almost the center of your business, from which you can launch more courses, more offerings, cohort-based, other content kind of capabilities.
Absolutely. And there's two things I'm going to pick up from what you said there. First of all, Facebook groups. Yes, they have got their bonuses. There are some fantastic Facebook groups out there, but as you said, there are an awful lot of just dead in the water ones. I'd love to know the ratio, I have to say, for like every one Facebook group where there are loads of engaged people, how many dead ones are there. I'm sure there's some stats somewhere. But for the people who are thinking, well, I want Facebook because it's easy to use, so many people have got a Facebook account, and I just go on, I create my group, easy to use. What other options are there out there for people who maybe are now listening and thinking, oh, maybe I should be thinking of something of Facebook, or even people who are thinking, is there another option outside of Facebook? What kind of things are your thoughts around that?
Yeah. I think, first we always recommend actually starting, I'm sure a lot of your audience does this right now, starting with an event. Start people out on some kind of event schedule, and then, take some time at the end, either in your post-event follow-up or even like in the, in a breakout room or something like that, to get your audience to kind of connect together and ask them, what are you most likely to use? Professionals are most likely already on Slack, which is really easy. Slack has its own challenges as a community platform, but it is, free, and professionals are there. Increasingly, there are, of course, people on Discord. That'll be a little bit more of a techie, crypto gaming sort of audience. But I think Discord's adding a lot of interesting features. They actually just added forums just in the past couple of weeks, which is super interesting. And then the one that we really like is called Circle. Circle, I'm sure you're nodding a lot of.
Oh yes, I like Circle.
Have you Circle? Circle's cool because I think like the chat. You go to it. I think Facebook. This is the ultimate problem with Facebook is like you go into Slack or Discord and it's either active and like hectic and hard to engage with, or it's dead and it feels dead. Nobody's posted in like a week, and you're like, oh, is this anybody using this thing? Whereas like a forum like Circle, it's like there's less pressure to be there every day, and you can go in, you can find the answers to the questions that you want. You can separate spaces by like content modules, and increasingly a lot of people are even using it as their learning management platform, actually putting all their content, all their videos, everything into Circle, and then using that as kind of the main course platform.
Yeah, I've been seeing that quite a lot recently, and similar with Mighty Networks, people just completely putting everything yep. in them. And I guess what I'm hearing is one of the things for somebody or a course creator who's thinking, I want this community aspect, is think about what you actually want from your community. Think what you want from a community space, because it could be that a Facebook group is actually ticking all of your boxes. But I think just like choosing your online course platform, it's really easy to get sucked into, oh, I need this feature I didn't even know that I had. And you're like, well, do you? Does your audience even want that? Do you know how to use that feature? Is it going to be additional money that you just don't want? So take advantage of looking around and looking at the reviews and the free trials and what have you, and really nailing down what it is that you want from a community, as you said. I also want to pick up on go on.
I would say it also just like don't overplan it. I think a lot of people almost get into this analysis paralysis in the early part of their journey, where it's like, I'm so interested in all these different things and all these different capabilities. I'm going to look at this feature, I'm going to look at that feature, I'm going to look at how Zapier ties them all together. Like, no, just like you can start and you can move. It's a little painful to move sometimes, but like sometimes it's better just to get going.
100%. And I think to that point as well, like it's really easy to get sucked in when you see different payment plans, isn't it? And be like, oh my gosh, I need this feature. Do you? Because if you didn't need it before you read about it, you probably don't need it. Get involved with the basis of the program first, and then build your way up there. So I guess that then takes me on to something else that I want to pick up on what you said, is that when you sometimes go in these community groups and they are just dead. We've all been there. We've all gone in a Facebook group and been like, no one's posted in the last month. Should I post? Maybe I won't post. What should I do? And that can be really, really scary, particularly if you're setting up your group in whichever platform you're using. If you're setting up your community around your course, and I think right at the beginning as well, you'll be lucky if people do talk back to you in a community, because people don't know the rules yet. People don't know if they can just throw out a question or throw out an answer. So how would you suggest to any of our audience who are thinking of starting a community aspect, how do they kind of get over that fear of no one's talking back to me, or I put out 2 comments and no one's talking. How would you suggest somebody just kind of gets going with a community aspect of their course?
Yeah, the most important thing you can do, sort of long term, is have like a ritual, a reason that people are going to come back each and every week. And so, backing, towards the early stages of that, the first things you need to do. There's fascinating sociological research that says that if you want somebody to talk in a meeting, you need to have them introduce themselves. And the reason being, as far as sociologists can tell, is like people get used to hearing their own voice in the room, and because of that, become more comfortable hearing it again. So encouraging introductions is something that we do all the time, which is like send them a personalized message when they first join. Say, hey, welcome to the community. Here's what you can expect here. Here's some of the norms and practices, and like go introduce yourself. And here's maybe what a good introduction looks like, so they can kind of pattern match off of that. Then, as you're building out the community, figure out why people are going to come back. If it's a cohort-based course, that's easy because you're going to have an event schedule and stuff already pre-built into it. If it's a course on a specific topic, maybe you have prompting questions every week and you theme them. To kind of get people thinking, and maybe even if you have multiple courses, have multiple themes. So different ways of just kind of like encouraging that conversation, and then also probably start with the folks who are most interested in doing that. Like find the people who are already reaching out to you a lot, already asking a lot of questions, already kind of the most gregarious sort of folks, and use them as kind of your seed pilot community. And then you can always expand, and people will see their behavior and want to pattern match off of that as well.
Absolutely. It's like so many things, isn't it? It's that trial and error and just seeing what sticks. And unfortunately, sometimes with a community, you can go with the best strategy in the world. And sometimes it is just a case of throwing some mud at the wall and seeing what sticks. I hate that expression, but sometimes it is. You never know what is going to be the talking point. For anybody who's kind of thinking to themselves, do you know what? I've been trying with the community. Should I just give up? Is there ever a time when you should just give up on a community aspect of an online course? Or is it, if you're thinking that, it's actually maybe better to pivot and re-look at your community?
It's always possible. Not every set of learners is going to want that kind of belonging. I always think back to this course that I did on Facebook ads, and I did like maybe 10% of the course, but that's exactly what I wanted. Like, was it just that 10%? I didn't really want to talk to anybody else. It was like very specific to me, learning a very specific and narrow skill. And if I were to like go think of a community that would come off of that, it would largely be around marketers, which I'm not a marketer, so like I wouldn't be an ideal sort of audience for that. So I think, yeah, if you have to kind of deliver what your users want, what your customers want, but if you do have that alignment, yeah, I think it can become a very powerful sort of hub of your business and things going forward.
Absolutely. And it's probably as well thinking about who is coming into your group. As you said, you went and did that specific course for a very small section. But if you join the Facebook group, do you want your Facebook feed to be filled up with marketing conversations and what have you? Probably not. So it's about who is your audience and which part of your community you're actually serving with your group. So I think that's always important for people to bear in mind there as well. So what I would like to also jump in on with this call is talking about memberships, because so often people ask, should I be running a membership? Should I be running an online course? Should I be running both? And there is a whole wealth. You type that question into Google and it just goes on and on and on for pages, and you can't get a conclusive answer, because the conclusive answer is, well, it depends on what you're trying to achieve. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, of course, the benefit of membership is, recurring revenue. Like
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, if you've got people coming in, they come back, they like you, they keep paying, like it becomes, a very strong position in becoming, maintaining a really strong solo business. So I think a lot of people think of like, how do I do that? What can I do to get to that point of membership, to go from courses to add coaching, to add the membership, and have this kind of be a self-sustaining ecosystem around my business. But yeah, like the community conversation, it's possible that there's not like a natural community or affinity towards that. So, the ways I've seen it working, a lot of early course creators will put out one piece of content, see what works, kind of keep iterating and marketing on that. branch that out with, maybe a coaching service or a mastermind or something that's a little bit more in person frequently, then build like a cohort. And what inevitably happens at the end of the cohort, if you do a good job creating community within a cohort, is the people want to keep talking to each other afterwards. And they'll want continued support from the cohort leader. And that, I think, leads really, really naturally into a membership community. And you can trial it with maybe your first handful of cohorts where it's like, you get free year access to the community, and then you can work on those engagement pieces that we just talked about, like how do I get people in here, get them active, get them excited and happy to come back and contribute, and then later on the membership afterwards.
Absolutely. I really like that idea about using the people who are already in your circle. So speaking about circle before, but who's already in your circle, who's already attending your courses, who is going to naturally lead into memberships. Because you again, going on Facebook forums, and I see people saying, oh, I did my founding launch or my launch for my membership, nobody signed up. And you're like, well, you might have your massive audience email list, but if you're just suddenly saying come and hang out with me for however many dollars per month, as you said, where's that affinity to want to spend time with you and learn from you and learn from the other people in the group, because there hasn't been that background work there, which can be quite challenging there. One of the other things which I know that you talk about is around automating membership operations as well, particularly between learning management platforms and community spaces. So tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, that's kind of the core of Burb and what we originally started working on, which was, you're an expert in a thing and you want to start teaching about that thing, and people are going to come and pay you for learning about that thing. But like, that doesn't mean digital marketing. That doesn't mean social. Doesn't mean that the technology involved, or all the learning management, the community space, all these different pieces. And then like, if you're lucky and successful, then you get to a level where you need to go pay somebody on Upwork to hook it all together with Zaps and Airtable and all this kind of stuff. And it occurred to us that we could kind of lower the burden there on the operational side, provide templates that connected all these different things together and make it really, really easy, such that when you are ready to go, from course to membership and track engagement and, personalized messages and all that kind of stuff, that we can make it really easy. And so what we looked at, especially early on, those cohort-based courses are really, really heavy operationally there. There's a Slack channel or a circle. There's your learning management platform. There are events. There's sort of weekly messaging. There are assignments. It's intense. And so we started working with those folks early on and just doing kind of whatever they needed, like helping them tie everything together with Zaps, help them like manage. In some cases, we actually ran the cohorts for them and engage people in the individual channels as they hit different parts of the course. And that's where we learned sort of those things around introductions, around creating that weekly cadence, around connecting all those systems. And it's a multi-dimensional sort of challenge, but really what you want to track is like, are they keeping up with the course material? Are they getting value out of it? How can I continue to engage this person and keep them going for this sort of constrained period of time, such that by the end they feel that they got the transformation that they want?
I think that's really important. Let's delve a little bit deeper into this, tracking the membership and tracking what individuals are doing, because I hear so often, it's one of my biggest bugbears, is when people say, I've set up an online course, or I'm going to set up an online course because it's passive income. I can then leave it alone and it will just make me money. And I actually I went and I met a new entrepreneur recently, and that's exactly her business model, is she wants to set up passive income courses. And I just sat there, and another colleague was next to me, and I think she could like hear my nails on the coffee table in front of me. I was just like, no, because I'm a massive believer that yes, there is a certain element of passive income to an online course, depending on how it's set up and its structure and what have you. But I am a firm believer that there's no such thing as a true passive income when it comes to online courses, for the things that you were talking about there, in terms of tracking membership, tracking engagement. But for somebody who is now listening to this and thinking, oh, but I wanted to set up my course for passive income, and that's fine. I'm not trying to scare anybody away from that idea. But what I would love you to explain to us is, why is it so important to track membership, to track retention rates, just to look at your stats for your students? Why is that kind of thing so important?
Yeah, I mean, my ultimate background is actually in product management. I worked in product, most notably at Yammer, which we scaled from nothing to tens of millions of users before being acquired by Microsoft. And it wasn't so much like it was not inherently a community. We weren't engaging directly with members all the time and users all the time, but we were constantly tweaking the app to make it better and better, so that more and more people would come. They'd talk about it, they'd invite their friends. Like, if you those sorts of like positive loops around the product and usage and like satisfaction do become valuable in and of themselves, even if you want to get to that point where the course markets itself, runs itself, that kind of like ultimate dream of passivity there. You need to make sure it's really, really good. And the way that you do that is by looking at those metrics, by tracking, by asking. I think so much of community is just talking to people. Like, can I get you on the phone for 5 seconds to talk about your experience here, what you like, what you don't? Because you get so much context out of those conversations.
Absolutely. Feedback forms, valuation forms, like you said, having a conversation with somebody, getting them to reply to you in an email. It's the information that you need to know, how am I going to improve my course for next time? How am I going to stop people from not wanting to buy another course from me or buy into my membership and what have you? Another thing I wanted to ask you, because we have mentioned several times already about Zaps and about I say Zapier, I think you say Zapier. I've probably been pronouncing it wrong. I'm very sorry, anyone from Zapier or Zapier, if I've been saying it wrong. But what is a Zap and what is Zapier, for anybody listening in who's suddenly thinking, oh my gosh, this is news to me? Can you break that down a little bit for us?
Yeah, it's a no-code automation platform. I will say although it's no code, it can be a little complex and daunting. But it's a way of basically saying, when this thing happens in this app, go make this other thing happen in this app. So somebody buys here, go add them to my Slack channel. Somebody, completes this section of my course, go fire off this, Slack DM to remind them to take the next section. So it's that kind of stuff. You can do basically a lot of what Burb can do with Zapier. But the challenge is that it's a Swiss Army knife. It's not a scalpel, and so it can be eventually you're most likely going to pay somebody on Upwork to go figure out that infrastructure rather than go build it all yourself.
Absolutely, but yeah, just for anyone who was kind of wondering what a Zap was or what have you, yeah, like lots of our software that we use, we've got integrations, but not everything's got a native integration to it. But you're right, like anything, it's obviously got its limitations, and for most there's going to be some sort of cost involved. But I just wanted to break that down in case anyone was there thinking, oh my gosh, what is this additional wording or language that I've now that's now come into my vocabulary. That's now come into my vocabulary there.
Yeah, of Fantastic. Course, early days, you're most likely going to be doing a lot of this stuff by hand, like download this thing, copy that person over and invite them. And that's really, what we saw with a lot of our folks. They were like, hey, I just did one 10-person cohort, and then I did a 12-person cohort. It went really well, but like it was very manual. I had to invite the person over there, and I type out an email and hit send, and like all these pieces were super valuable, and people told me that they were really, really valuable. But I am about to go for the 50-person cohort, and like I have no idea how I'm going to get there doing all of this. I was tired with 12 people. 50 people seems crazy to me.
Absolutely. And there's two things I want to pick up on what you just said there. Is first of all, you mentioned numbers and starting out with maybe 10 or 12 people in a cohort, working up to 50 odd. I think that's really important, because I did an episode a couple of weeks back. It was a couple of weeks back for me to record, but by the time this comes out, it'll have been a few episodes ago. And this was exactly one thing that I was saying to somebody. It was a coaching episode, and they said, how many people should I have in my cohort? I want as many people as possible. I was like, have you ever taught a large number of people? Because it's really important as course creators for us to remember that teaching 10 people is so different to teaching a room of 200 people. I remember I was teaching the first room of like 150 people and I just wanted the ground to swallow me up. It was, doesn't matter. I got through it. Didn't even do it half trying or anything. 7 hours. Oh my gosh, never going to forget that, but never mind. But the point is that there's nothing wrong with starting your cohort small and working up. In some ways it's better because you can get the feedback, you can get the, your confidence up and what have you, which is incredibly important there.
Yeah, I mean, I think we see these sort of aspirational cohorts like Ship 30 for 30, and we want to compare our beginning to their middle. And, if you actually saw the operational back end of Ship 30, it's intense. The Airtable that they have set up to manage all of the data, all the zaps that they have connecting all of that, that Daniel and Steph have put together. It is, and then like they've built out a whole network of folks who've been through the course before to be mentors, to like handle all the different chapters. So the infrastructure they have to run a 500 person cohort is very, very, sophisticated, and you don't need to get there in your first go, and be nearly impossible.
Yeah, that is just so important, and I think it is the thing that out of everybody I've interviewed for the podcast, or everybody that we've spoken to for the podcast, absolutely everybody has said exactly the same thing. Stop comparing your beginning point with somebody else's middle or somebody else's 5-year journey, their 10-year journey. Yes, you might want to be the next Amy Porterfield, and that is a fantastic aspiration, or Melissa Griffin, whoever, but they didn't get there within 2 weeks. Yeah. So why would you? And like you said, it's when people then put their first course out there or put their second course out there, whatever we're seeing on Instagram or Facebook or whatever is not the sleepless nights. It's not all of the email integrations. It's not the 5th iteration of the introduction video because you keep mucking up how you say your own name or something ridiculous like that. You don't see any of that. You don't see the first Canva graphics which got thrown to the side because you thought, oh my gosh, these are absolutely awful in hindsight. You see none of that. You see a polished and finished product. So as you said, stop comparing your beginning, your first course, your first community, your first membership to somebody who's been doing it for goodness knows how long and has also got a massive team behind them. I think if anything there is to take away from this episode, I think it's that. Don't compare yourself to others there. Absolutely. Sorry, I'm just having a little look at what I've been jotting things down as you've been talking. Just want to make sure that we cover everything. Is there anything else that you want me to ask you or you want to cover, or obviously I'll just cut this whole chunk out.
Yeah, something I've been thinking about a bit was also the sort of the why of the various course structures. Like, why would I do a membership versus why would I do a cohort versus why would I do an evergreen course? That's something that's really interesting to me.
Yeah, no, I love that. Let's dive into that. Why would I choose a different formats of a course or a membership? So for example, we've already mentioned that we've got evergreen courses, we've got cohort-based courses, we've got memberships, and it can be a bit overwhelming, I think, sometimes to decide exactly what type of format we should go for and why. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, the way I like to think about it is an evergreen course is, for a specific skill. I want to learn from an expert how to do this particular thing. Then, what I saw of like cohort-based courses, it was about like time box transformation. I, in my career or in my personal life, want to go from point A to point B in a rapid period of time. And, of course, this was really big in the early days of the pandemic, reskilling. People wanting to learn new job responsibilities and new things that they could do as they're working from home. And then I think what we've seen a lot actually over the past year or so is people moving from the cohort to the membership-based model, not I think they've got a similar goal, but a longer period of time. So now you and I want to reskill and want to have this like end goal in mind, but it's not so much about like getting it done in 3 months. It's like, I'm going to make a transition in my life, and here's a thing that I'm doing. I want a support network for that change that I'm making. I want you, the course creator, to help me. I want you to be a guide for me, but like, it's not necessarily, you're not the one on stage all the time. You're not the one who's constantly on in charge of me making that transformation. It's me working with the community to make that transformation myself. And that, I think those three modalities, I think a course creator at, speaking again to that middle state, you can have all three. And I think they're really powerful compounding. But I think the different modalities help people in just different ways.
Absolutely. And I guess for some people who are probably sitting there thinking, well, I'm still a little bit stumped, which one should I go for? I guess it's also remembering that there's nothing wrong with trialing different things. Just because you've set up an evergreen course, it doesn't mean that you're still going to be running that evergreen course in 3 years' time and that you have to stick to it all guns blazing. You might run a couple of rounds of it and then think, actually, this isn't working. I'm going to try a couple of cohorts of it instead, or I'm going to switch it to a membership. It goes back to what you were saying about getting that feedback, jumping on calls with people, getting the getting the analysis. I can't talk. Getting the analysis. I can't talk. The analysis and I know what I'm trying to say. Getting the analytics and the statistics. There we go. I said it then. And actually getting that information to be able to make an informed decision. And I think to that point, I was talking to quite a really big course creator not too long ago, and one of the things that she was saying is that a course that she only ran about 2 iterations of it, and then she was like, do you know what, it didn't matter how popular it wasn't working for me. And it's like, well, at the end of the day, you're the one that's got to run the course. It's your job. Especially if it's a cohort, those people are potentially only going to be with you for, I don't know, a couple of months, maybe 6 months tops type thing. You're the one that's got to stick with it all the time. So you've got to feel comfortable with whatever you're putting out there, because you're going to have more of a natural affinity and more of a passion if it's sitting right with you and your teaching style as well.
Yeah, getting metaphysical there. I'm a big believer in following basically what your energy is for, and whether it, for me it was entrepreneurship. I always wanted to start my own company, and operate my own startup. But if you wake up in the morning and you're drained and you're exhausted, you're not going to provide a great teaching experience out of that. So it's really about finding that kind of balance and what draws you.
100%. And I think that goes back to what we were saying right at the beginning about communities as well, and choosing the community platform which is going to sit with you and your audience best. Because we've got some people who are like, actually, I really like my Facebook group because I can type, I know that Facebook's got, you can go live and you post videos and what have you, but primarily what we see in a lot of Facebook groups is the text talking. And for some people that's going to work really, really well. And for some people, being on a community platform where there is the talking and there is the showing up in terms of this is my face, that can be draining and exhausting for some people. Yeah. Equally for other people, they love that, and that completely suits their personality and they can sit and talk in front of a camera for absolute hours and it energizes them. And actually, to be talking like keyboard talking for some people, that's not going to be their ideal community, because that's just not working for them as individuals. So I think what you were saying, it's so important to make sure that what you're delivering is sitting with you as an individual, because you've got to enjoy what you do. We all, we don't set up our businesses and teach online because we hate it and we want to create a really boring job for ourselves.
Yes, there are plenty of boring jobs out there if you want to go get a boring job.
Exactly. You've got to enjoy what you do. So we have gone through so much in this episode. I think there's been so much value for all of our listeners. So thank you so much for joining us today and go through all these points. If there was one thing that our listeners will take away from this episode, what would you like that to be?
Yeah, I think ultimately I would leave with the idea that a community can be sort of the hub of your course business. It can help your students, with long-term transformation, and it can be a really, really powerful, as well as a powerful support for your business and recurring revenue, and building a solid foundation for everything else you do after that. I will say that it's challenging. You have to think about it like it's its own separate product. You have to research it. You have to understand what your members want, keep delivering what they want. But if you can do that, it becomes almost a self-fulfilling prophecy that it just keeps rolling. It keeps building upon each other, and you can rely on your members to even take on more and more effort over time. So it can be really, really gratifying if you can get there.
Brilliant. I love that. And for anybody who has had their interest particularly piqued by what it is that you do, or Burb, where can they find out more about you and Burb as your company as well?
Yeah, you can just go to burb.co, burb.co, like suburb. And it's free for up to 100 members. And if you have more than 100 members, it's free for the first month. So you can go ahead and check it out. And then you'll get an email from me because we're all about automation and personalization. So you can always reply, and I'll be the person responding.
Fantastic. And I'll get that link down in the show notes as well. So make it super easy. Anyone who wants to check out Burb, then they can just hit the link down there in the show notes. Well, Drew, thank you so much for joining us. It has been a fantastic, fantastic episode. I really appreciate your time.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Verity, and thank you to the audience.
Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the Confident CEO podcast. Before you go, I would absolutely be overjoyed if you could take just 2 minutes to leave me a review in Apple Podcasts. Reviews are a great way to tell Apple Podcasts how much you enjoyed the show, and it helps the algorithm to push out the podcast to more people, thereby helping us to help empower even more badass businesswomen to grow their inner CEO and grow to be the confident CEO of their business that they can be. I love to shout you out in your reviews as well. So you never know, you might be hearing your name on the podcast in the next episode. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.